Have you started wondering whether or not you're going to be able to keep your job or start a job as you start your first year of law school? Whether or not you should keep your job or get a job? And if you are planning to get a job, how you're going to do that on top of being a first year student? If that sounds like you, stick around. My name is Alice Foley, and I'm an associate law school consultant with Montgomery Admissions Consulting. I come to this work with almost a decade of law school admissions experience, and in that job, in my role as an admissions officer, I worked with students basically from the first time they engage with the school that I worked for to the day that they walk in orientation, and really after that too. And that's really what I'm pulling on today. I spent most of my career working pretty closely with my current students and watching them have these exact same questions and work through this exact same process. I also worked through it when I was a law student, so I'm bringing all of that experience, all of the knowledge that I've learned to you. So as I said, we're going to cover whether or not you can work, whether or not you should work, and if you're going to work, how you should do that. So first up, can you work as a first-year law student? It depends. If you've seen any other video that I've done, if you've listened to me at all, you will know that the answer to literally every question from here on out is always going to be it depends. And the reason I say it depends here is because up until 2014, law schools weren't allowed to let students work more than 20 hours each week. The American Bar Association said so. It was part of the deal for being an accredited law school. Now, they scrapped that requirement in 2014, but all that means is that it became up to the school. So your ability to work, especially as a first-year student, is going to depend entirely on what school you attend. Some schools don't care at all. Do what you want to do. You're an adult, figure it out. Other schools, absolutely not. Especially in the first year, you don't get to work. We'll figure it out if you must work or you need a paycheck or something along those lines, but not happening. And some schools fall kind of in the middle, whether it's a formalized process or just kind of a check-in at the very beginning of school to say, hey, I'm planning on working, and some administrative office, whether it's academic success or student life or something along those lines, is just gonna kind of check in on you, make sure that everything's balanced out okay. The next thing that you want to consider is whether or not trying to maintain anything more than a part-time schedule with your work is going to be possible. Full disclosure, I don't think it ever is. Some students have tried to do night shift work, but if I'm gonna be honest, sleeping is important. You cannot make it through law school on 3 hours of sleep every night and then just catching up on the weekends. Don't do that to yourself or your body. Part-time work, on the other hand, is usually pretty manageable. The other option, if you want to work more than part-time, is to look at part-time law school. Now, there are some big asterisks here. Some law schools have very traditional part-time programs. They're in the evenings, they're over the weekends, they are built in such a way that you can continue working a full-time job. But a lot more law schools, part-time actually just means half credit. So you are taking the exact same classes with the exact same students that are in the full-time program during the day. You're just taking less classes at a time. Now, if this is the situation that you're running into and you want to go part-time law school, part-time work, or attempt full-time work, I wish you the best. But if you're going to go part-time for both, finding a job that's flexible or working with your current job to make them understand how your schedule is going to work is going to be critical. You want to make sure that they know there's a very real chance that you're going to be in class from 9 to 9:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays and from 1 to 4 on Mondays and Wednesdays. If you work in a place that's going to be amenable to that it's okay that you do these things, wonderful. But if you're planning to work like front desk receptionist or something that requires you to be in an office uninterrupted, it's going to be a lot harder. I know several of my students in the last couple of years had remote jobs where they just needed their laptop and an internet connection, which meant if they had a break between classes and they didn't need to do homework or schoolwork or read for class or whatever, they could knock out an hour or two of work depending on how long the break was. That's the dream. Finding a job that's flexible, that allows you to work from wherever you are, is going to be so much easier than trying to manage going to an office, leaving the school, coming back, all of that. But both are absolutely possible. I know one of my students in particular, anytime he was not in class during the day, he was working at his other job. Again, all it required was a laptop and an internet connection. I think some days he may have used a VPN just for a little extra security because university Wi-Fi, it is what it is. But otherwise, all he needed was his laptop at the end of the day. So that meant that if he didn't need to read for class, he could do work in the library, in the student lounge, out on the patio if the weather was nice. That is an excellent way to keep working while you're in law school. The next thing that you want to start considering is whether or not you should work. And there are plenty of reasons that you absolutely should work during law school. The first one that always comes to mind is that you need to. You need that financial support. You cannot afford to stop working entirely while you're in law school, and that's okay. Many people do that perfectly successfully. Don't panic if that's you. The other reason that some folks may continue to work during law school is that they're trying to maintain a relationship with the organization they currently work with. Whether that is because it's something that they love doing, it's an organization that they believe in, or it's a legal organization or something that they plan to continue on after law school. Making sure that you don't just drop off the planet for 3 years makes it all the more likely that you're going to walk out of your law school graduation with a job at that same organization. And that's a great strategy, especially if you like what you're doing and that's what you plan to do after graduation. Keeping those ties strong is awesome. Absolutely do that. One of my friends when I was in law school came from a job that he had worked full-time for several years. He came in as a slightly older student, and he worked on holidays. He worked very, very, very minimally during the school year, and he worked through the summer doing legal work after he started his law school career. And he walked out of graduation with a job. He knew exactly what it was that he was doing. He knew that they were going to work with him while he studied for the bar. He knew that that job was there, and it just takes so much stress off. And the likelihood of that job still having been there for him if he had just, thrown up his hands, walked out the door, and said, "I'll see you in 3 years," probably not as high. It also keeps you plugged into what's going on at the organization, whether or not it's major updates to systems or processes, or culture changes or something along those lines. Being plugged in while you're in law school is still a really, really great strategy. The next reason that you may want to continue working or start working while you're in law school is that it's something that really brings you joy. Whether that's a creative outlet or something that utilizes a skill that doesn't really have a place in law school right now, being able to monetize it, not always a bad thing. I know several of my students had side jobs, whether it was piano lessons or violin lessons or language tutoring. One of the other ones was super smart. She was a fabulous photographer, and she had a lot of experience doing professional photography. So, headshots that don't look quite as boring as the normal ones that you can get at like a school event. And she worked with, I think, her entire class. So they all had beautiful headshots with slightly more interesting backgrounds, and they were able to do that, and she was able to make money. Everybody wins there. The other thing that this is going to help with knowing why it is you're continuing your job or why you're starting the job is that if you are going to a law school that requires you to go through some type of process to get permission, being able to tell whoever it is that you are working with or whoever it is that needs to sign off, no, this is why I'm doing this. I have a plan. I have thought this through. It's not just for the paycheck. Although again, just for the paycheck is a completely legitimate reason. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. If you have a future goal that you can articulate, all it does is help. It is a lot harder for an administrator to say, I don't think so. I want you focusing on school. If you can give them a well thought out reason for why you are continuing to work or why you are starting to work as a law student. It also typically means that you've given it a bit of thought, which makes me think you may have already given some thought as to how you are going to balance everything. I do want to say one quick thing. If you are planning to start law school and then 2 weeks later start working at a firm to get legal experience, that may not be as easy as you think. Most legal organizations want to wait until you have that first year under your belt, because the first couple of weeks, you don't know what's going on. You are not super helpful as far as the legal parts of working in a law firm, working in a legal aid organization, working in the legal realm. You're just not. And chances are there are 2Ls and 3Ls or graduates that can do the thing that you do and have had some practice. But don't panic. By the time second semester of your first year rolls around, you're going to start interviewing for your summer jobs, so you're going to have the chance to show off those skills that you've learned in your first year of law school too. So don't worry, it just comes a little later. Finally, how do you work? What does this look like for a first year student? I just touched on very briefly that it's probably not going to be summer associate or baby lawyer work, and that's okay. You're not ready for that yet. And again, that is okay. You shouldn't be ready for that yet. What it can look like, though, is most conveniently, it can be a job on campus. Whether that's within the law school or somewhere else, campus work is typically a lot more flexible for the sheer fact that they know that you are a student. They understand that work is second priority to the academic program that you are part of. do want to put a quick note here. Law school, like in the law school building jobs, aren't super prevalent for first year students. There is a bit of an unwritten rule that during your first year, you should be figuring out how to law school, and everybody in the law school community abides by that. That is not to say that you are completely barred from working, but don't be shocked if you see positions for research assistants for faculty members or office administrators for the student life office or the front office or whoever it is that needs like a front desk person. Don't be shocked if those are not open to you. It really is simply because everybody in that community is invested in your success, and doing well in your first year and taking the time to understand what it is that you're learning in that first year is going to be key to making sure that you continue to succeed. This does not mean that if you have a less than stellar first year that you are completely like off the rails and are never going to be successful. I graduated just fine, and my first year was terrible. I'm not going to say what my GPA was, but I can promise you it was not good. And my diploma, there it is still right behind me. So don't panic if your first year doesn't go as well as you think it should. The next thing that's going to be really useful is whether or not your school offers graduate assistantships. Those are super handy because they typically come with not only a living allowance, you may not be making a ton of money, but you're getting something, which is not bad. They also typically come with tuition assistance. So these are going to vary school to school. Some may bar professional students from taking them. Some may only allow you to work within the college that you're a part of, but some schools have no requirement like that. The schools that I worked for didn't care where you came from. If you were qualified for the job and you were a graduate student of some type, you could apply. And if you're coming from a psychology background into law school and the psychology department on campus needs a TA and it works out with your schedule, that's a great opportunity for you. Keep utilizing the things that you learned in undergrad and get some help with tuition and living allowance. Watch those. Some of them are half-time or maybe only 9 months, so keep an eye on what the terms are. But again, campus jobs, academic-related jobs are really handy because at the end of the day, whoever is supervising you knows what it is that you are doing, and that is being a graduate student first, professional school student first. The next thing that you want to look for, and I touched on this at the very beginning, is those remote jobs with flexible schedules. In the last several years, whether we wanted to or not, being able to work from home, work remotely, work where you didn't need to go into the office has become much more common. That means that your opportunities have increased quite significantly. If you can find something that you enjoy doing, that pays well, that doesn't require you to be in a specific place or put a certain amount of time in each day, that's great. That is such an excellent way to work. If it is, independent contracting has its own issues, but that's not what we're here to talk about. If you can find something along those lines where you bill for the time that you work and you get paid for the time that you work, you are not expected to do a certain amount, that's an excellent choice. Not only can you work in between classes, but if you have a particularly busy week, you aren't worried about getting in trouble with your job. You just don't work that week. And that's a completely acceptable option. Finally, if you are looking to make a lot of money with low effort, there are a couple of things that come in handy. And for what it's worth, high dollar, low effort is going to be your best friend here. You do not want to be putting a ton of brain power into what it is that you're doing unless it's something that you really love. And that's okay. Do that part of the thought process later. But if you were just like, I'm here to make money, take a look at your professors. I know I just said that they probably won't hire you for research assistants, but one of the things that I thought was really neat when I was a law student and when I was an administrator is that the faculty members and the administrators at the law school know you. You are part of their community. So when they're looking for a pet sitter, a house sitter, a babysitter, whatever it is, those types of jobs, they typically pay pretty well. And I'm not sure how much lower effort house sitting can get. You're basically there to make sure the place doesn't burn down and check the mail. Plus, in my experience, it's really nice to take a vacation from your own home. So going to stay at a professor's house for a couple of days or a week or however long it is that they are out of town or whatever it is that they're doing that takes them away, super fun little mini vacation. And they also typically aren't super far from school, so figuring out a brand new commute or anything along those lines is not something that you really need to worry about. If you are a dog or a cat person or some other kind of pet person, pet sitting is also a great way to make some money. I know they have the online rover kind of situations, but if you want to work within your community and you want to work for people who know what is going on in your schedule, talk to your faculty, talk to your administrators. My faculty members legitimately kept a list. During orientation at one point, we were asked, do you like to house sit? Do you like to pet sit? Do you want to pet sit in a home that the pet is attached to, or can they come to your house? And if anybody was going out of town, that list made the rounds. So it's a great way to help out in your community and make some money. The other thing that is this kind of low effort, hopefully high pay, are front desk positions like at a hotel or something along those lines. Unless it's a super busy time, you're gonna have downtime. You're gonna be able to read for class. You're going to be able to work on whatever it is that you need to do for school in between dealing with customers. That is an excellent, excellent example of low effort. All you need to do is know the basics about where you're working, whatever those processes are, and you don't have to go out of your way. You're not running around the entire time that you're working. There's a very real chance on a slow day you could be sitting for most of it, but you do still need to be there, and they need to staff that desk. How cool is it to get paid to do your reading for class? Think about all of those as you start going into your first year and you're trying to figure it out. The other final thing that I want to put on for you guys is to give yourself time to figure out whether or not you can work and you can balance, because balance is going to be key here. Everyone says the first year of law school is difficult, and I'm not here to tell you that it's not. It is 100% absolutely doable, but it has its moments of difficulty. And a lot of them come right when you start because you are figuring out how to do law school. This is a new way of learning. It's new material. Even if you took classes on the law in undergrad, or you've been working as a paralegal and you think you know your way around, it's different. You're learning a new way to write. You're learning to read cases that are quite often, especially in the first year, very dry. But they are important and you need to do that. So giving yourself, even if it's just a couple of weeks, to really settle into how it is you're gonna law school and figure out how much of your time needs to go to law school and how much time needs to go to you, being a human and doing things that are not for school or for work. They are just for you. And then you can take a look at how much time is left over to work. So we've covered a couple of things today. First, whether or not you can, and we all know the answer is that it depends on your law school. The next thing we covered is whether or not you should work and what kind of thought process you need to go through as you're deciding that, and why it's a good idea to have a good reason. And finally, we talked about some options for jobs as first-year students, because as much fun as it would be to walk right into a legal organization and show off what you learned in your first month of contracts, no one's going to ask you to do that. They want to make sure you have the whole rest of the semester first. So if this has been helpful at all, please like and subscribe below. If you know somebody that this may help, please share it with a friend.